And welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. Welcome back in. Here we are. It's nearly the end of the week. We got another thing coming. Name the band. I was just listening to some music as I was cooking dinner. I'm making a turkey bolognese. It's back on the stove. I was on the couch. Back on the stove being cooked. This is the first time on a Thursday where I've done... Typically my workout for Thursday is wake up, boxing, cycling, then yoga in the afternoon. Yoga in the evening. Today... I was like, well, we finished it. We finished a very long meeting at work, and I went, all right, I guess I'll do yoga a couple hours early. And now it's an indeterminate time during the workday, closer to the end of the workday, about 20 minutes away. And now I'm able to cook dinner instead of eating it at 7. I'll be able to eat at 6:30. At least it's turkey bolognese. It's gonna take a minute. Low and slow, baby. Anyway, I was listening to music, and the first song that I just YouTube music, played it on the Google Max over here. I saw on the quick picks, Huey Lewis, Back in Time. I've been on a very big kick with the Back to the Future soundtrack. Sorry, I just heard what I thought was vomiting. And then after that, it played "Mighty Wings" by Cheap Trick from the Top Gun soundtrack, which is a song I love. Then "The Power of Love." Then Tom Cochran's "Life Is a Highway." "Eye to Eye" by Tevin Campbell from the movie, a Goofy movie, and Rosie Gaines. Then "Love Is a Long Road" by Tom Petty, and then "Your Love" by The Outfield. A band when I was at the stove called The Outfit. I said, yes, "Your Love" by The Outfit. Here we are. We are in, it's an interesting time when it comes to the news. And I'm a gentleman. If you've been listening to the show for a long time, don't know why you would. I'm somebody who's been in the news. I'm somebody who started in the news. I'm still involved because I read a lot, and that's what happens when you work in the news. When you're in the news, I don't think anybody ever really leaves the news. You just continue to be, even if you're burned out, you still have that muscle memory. And with that, I watch and read a lot of news, a lot of Breitbart. I get my news from Andrew Scholes, the rest of those goons. I get my news from late night. Because if it isn't on SNL Weekend Update or Jon Stewart, I don't know it. Anyway, and because I watch a lot of news, I also get a lot of the same types of stories. It sounds like there's a fight going on. And the unfortunate thing of it is that I've been following along with the Savannah Guthrie and her mother has disappeared. Has possibly been kidnapped, and it sucks. It's a gut wrenching story. If you are not affected by this, then truly you have no heart. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but to the very least, the officials think she's been taken last Saturday night into Sunday morning. What a scary thing. What a truly scary thing to hear. But I've seen a lot of, I've gotten a lot of emails regarding from the news outlets regarding how the Today Show is handling it, and I watch morning news all the time. And it's, not all the time. At least Monday through Friday, if I make it back from the gym in time. The Today Show, I we have noticed now that everybody at Today's Show has heightened security, courtesy of NBC Universal, obviously, and now this, I'll say the tightest team in morning news is, wrecked because they start each broadcast with more updates or even the lack thereof. Chanel Jones is taking over Savannah's spot. Savannah obviously opted out of going to the Winter Olympics. When that was released, when that news was released, I think like a couple of days ago, it was just I went, yeah, why the fuck would she go? It doesn't make sense. Chanel, if you don't know, she just lost her husband. This is another tragedy to hit the Today Show. But for Savannah, she's been the co-anchor since 2012. She's they've dealt with kind of strife before when Matt Lauer was fired in 2017, and it felt like for a little bit they when Craig was upped to the co-host spot after Hoda Kotb left the show, it really seemed like they were in their groove, especially after Chanel came back. And now it's just kind of like one battle after another, And I don't mean it. I don't mean it to be after the name of the movie in the book. So you just hope. Even Trump is like. Well, I don't know if it's probably at the advice of his people, but even Trump's like, we're gonna throw all personnel at this. I think even when you have a person who is truly a despicable human being, like defending this, then it's trying to help. It's pretty powerful. I still hate him. So we wish, hopefully, everything turns out to be okay. It's Today's Show this morning. They played Savannah and her siblings posted a video to Savannah's Instagram. That was like 3 or 4 minutes long, just saying, we need to know that you have her and that she's still alive. It was very sad to watch, and Today's Show played in its entirety, and I think so did CNN. Every morning show played this. Excuse me. Every morning show had this in the A block as their top story. A block is the first block before the commercial, that commercial break, and the next block is B block, and then so on and so forth. So it's that serious. Speaking of news, this comes from. Oh Jesus! This comes from. Nope. That's not what I wanted. What is this? The notification center? No, I wanted this. If you're watching the video, you just saw the one of the two widgets I have on the Mac desktop. This comes from Variety, written by Todd Spangler. Jeff Bezos' Washington Post cuts 30% of staff, laying off more than 300 employees, including Amazon Beat reporter. It was basically foretold that more so insinuated that the Washington Post was going to go through a massive set of layoffs, and we learned that number on what was this, Tuesday, I think. 30%. Staffers were informed by email Wednesday morning they should stay at home and attend video conference at 8:30 a.m. On the call, Washington Post executive editor Matt Murray said the sports and books section will close along with the Post Reports daily news podcast. Oh, I didn't know Post Reports was closing? Oh, man. That sucks. I like Post Reports. This comes from The Athletic. The Washington Post eliminates sports section as part of wider layoffs. That's right. The entire sports section is gone. This comes from Dan Shanoff. This is Wednesday. Wednesday is when everything happened. That staff included around 45 people of the 300, and a handful of sports staffers will be reassigned within the newsroom. The move is a part of a larger swath of cuts across the newsroom and wider Post organization impacting hundreds of employees. If you don't know the importance of not just the sports section, period, but the sports section of the Washington Post, Shanoff writes, considered one of the greatest American newspaper sports sections, home of the legendary Shirley Povich, showcase for Hall of Famers like Thomas Boswell, incubator of award-winning talent like Christine Brennan, Sally Jenkins, and David Aldridge, and the original source of the winning alchemy that Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon later took to ESPN. The department was part of widespread staffing reduction and coverage elimination. Why are you reiterating this? The New York Times, the Washington Post sports section is very important. They sent 4 staffers to Italy to cover the Winter Olympics, which start tomorrow as of this recording. After initially announcing that no reporters would be covering the games, it was supposed to be that no one was going to go. A stark departure from the previous investments of the organization that made to cover the event. They'd already. This gives you a little hint into how abrupt this had been. Last week, I believe that it was like they were going to go, and they already had bookings, they had reservations and all that stuff, and then this was rumored to happen, and then the Post was said to be sending nobody, but now this new 4 staffers thing is just rough to see. This is not the first time that we've seen a change in a national newspaper. I guess the New York Times is worldwide, but the New York Times, they're just like the Washington Post, except they're able to back up their sports section. The New York Times, when they bought The Athletic, they gutted their sports desk, and now The Athletic is all of the New York Times sports. However, I do believe that they sent people to other sections. I'm back on the variety piece. Local and international reporting teams will also be reduced. The cuts will refocus the paper, which has been losing money on national and political news, along with business and health. To me, and I said this in LinkedIn logs earlier this week, this will only turn what is supposed to be a national newspaper into something that will be, they want it to be more focused. But in a sense, I think it's just going to be more broad in a way that the USA Today is one of the most broad papers, if you could even call it a paper, periodical in the history of periodicals. Now, being general doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, but to take away what the Washington Post originally was, it's not good. I also said during LinkedIn Logs, if you don't subscribe to that show, that I could see Washington Post in this rebrand just being renamed to something like, in the same way that Huffington Post, which was named after Ariana Huffington, when she left, they changed it to HuffPo, which is a nickname. I could see Washington Post taking one of 2 names, either WAPO or The Post. I think they should just change it to The Post, if that's going to happen. Journalism is very important. This is just, especially after being purchased by a billionaire who resembles a semenized version of Mr. Clean. This is going to essentially eliminate just something that is supposed to be so truthful and factual, and it's going to streamline it, and not in a way that makes sense or works. The beat reporter for Amazon that covered Amazon at the Post, Caroline O'Donovan, is gone. She even posted on X. Wow, that she left. It's crazy. More people are posting on X. Let's not do that. Other people laid off include national culture and entertainment writer Jada Yan, book editor Jacob Brogan, tech columnist Jeff Flower. Oh, I like that guy. Theater critic Naveen Kumar, sports and media writer Ben Strauss. I'm finding this out along with you. Ukraine correspondent Lizzie Johnson, and Cairo bureau chief Claire Parker, who said, quote, the entire roster of Middle East correspondents and our editors also have been let go. Wow. They released a memo that was obtained by Variety. A more flexible, sustainable model will help us better navigate unprecedented volatility, competition, technological changes, news consumption habits, and cost pressure. I don't necessarily think that's true, because the New York Times just posted their quarterly earnings for Q4, and while they didn't do great, they didn't necessarily bottom out. Let me see the New York Times earnings. They added 1.4 million digital subscribers in 2025. Total revenue of they increased their revenue up 10.4% for the fourth quarter of 2025 to 802.3 million. So they did well, even if it's not necessarily the earnings that they were looking for. Digital is improving for New York Times. This is I'm citing the New York Times themselves from Katie Robertson. There is a hunger. There is, and also not even just a hunger, but there's also a need for local and truthful news. This is why, when you see the when you see the attacks on PBS and NPR and the cuts of their budgets, and you see local news sections just going down throughout the country, people turn to the internet and they turn to untruthful places like TikTok and citizen journalists because they think that's where the only places where they can get news. There's a thing in Atlanta called ATL Scoops that more or less just posts violent aspects of the city, which is really unfortunate. And they'll post like there's a car chase, there's a fire, there were gunshots, whatever. Sometimes they'll post nice things like here's a run club doing some shit. I learned recently that ATL Scoops, which is something I don't follow, is run by a lot of conservative women who are looking to paint the city in negative colors, which is just so unfortunate. I would love to see. You might be hearing golf in the background because I am watching the WM Phoenix Open. Sky's not doing too well. It's just not fun seeing this happen and occur to something that's so big. That is the Washington Post. All right, this next one comes from the New York Times, written by Brooks Barnes. Can this man break Disney's succession curse? We have Disney's new leader. Bob Iger announced that he was stepping down. Days went by. Ooh, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? To no one's surprise, if you follow along, it's Josh D'Amaro. He's the guy who's in charge of the parks at this point in time. Iger stepping down for the second time, and he's giving the reins of the kingdom to the guy who took over for Bob Chapek when he was given the reins of the kingdom. But remember, Bob Chapek did not do a good job, and he also came from parks. There were two candidates, Dana Walden, who is in charge of Disney TV except for ESPN, and also has joint oversight of streaming, and Josh, I keep calling him Jay D'Amaro. D'Amaro, who runs a division that includes the theme parks, cruises, and video games. I would have preferred Dana Walden, but I don't think just as the world was not ready for a woman president, they're not ready for a woman to be in charge of Disney, which is a shame. Mr. D'Amaro's unit supplied roughly 60% of Disney's profit last year, talking about the parks and the games and stuff, the parks. It accounts for 80% of what Disney is worth as a whole, according to Moffett Nathanson, a research firm. Josh oversees three of Disney's four most important growth areas: cruises, games, and parks, and then streaming is the next thing. For someone, now Dana, I believe she was also given a new job as the. Hold on, let's see. Dana Walden. She is the co-chairman of Disney Entertainment. What is her new job? Other board, Walt Disney Company. Let's see. She's promoted to president and chief creative officer. The new jobs take effect March 18th, 2026. Now Disney, they've been a little more reticent as of late to not to putting out shows and movies that for a couple of years seem to flood the IP that they had. So I'm talking about Star Wars and Marvel, and now that they've pulled back and they seem to be focused, they want the streaming aspect to be the next big leg. I wonder if with that streaming, is that also inclusive of, obviously I know streaming is at home, but is that also inclusive of television and film? Because if there's four big pillars of Disney, how is games one of them? Just like Warner Brothers. Yeah, they don't have a lot of games out, but they do have some games. They have more games than Warner Brothers. Can this Josh guy do it? He's a guy that seems pretty affable, and if you read the piece, people recognize him in the same way that people recognized Iger. He doesn't have a lot of experience in movies. And with Disney having things like Pixar and Marvel and Star Wars and 20th Century, is he going to be able to foster the same kind of relationships and make the same kind of output, have the same kind of output in the way that Iger did? Because Iger's been with Disney for decades. Iger knew how to walk among Hollywood. Is this Josh guy going to be able to do the same thing? And with somebody like Dana working with him, I think that is like he has the company rather has the perfect recipe to be successful. Just close my work laptop. I get why they now that I'm talking it through, I get why they didn't make Dana the big boss, because she's in charge of the entertainment division, whereas Josh is a part of the three divisions that have helped bolster Disney and what it is. But I feel like they could work hand in hand. I think he could just be the face. Have trust in him. All right. And this final bit comes from The Hollywood Reporter, written by Katie Kilkenny. Christopher Nolan wants to know where all the Hollywood jobs are, too. Christopher Nolan is the head of the Directors Guild of America. He started his reign this past fall, and he's he recognizes that there's not a lot of work for the 19,500 members of the Directors Guild of America, and he wants to help facilitate how they can get more jobs. In his first set of interviews, he talked about how they want to approach labor negotiations, because we are in a couple of months coming up on labor negotiations. Remember, they stopped the SAG and the writer strikes lasted for a couple of years during those negotiations, and now because these negotiations happen every 3 years, we're right back at it. Remember, there was a work stoppage for like 18 months. So talk about labor negotiations, AI, and corporate consolidation, i.e., Warner and Netflix, or Warner and Paramount. Nolan said that early on that he wants to explore the gap between consumer spending on entertainment and industry jobs with employers. He said that consumer investment in members' work has been extremely stable. All the while in 2024, the union saw a 35% decrease in employment on television and an 8 to 12% downturn in film. They don't have the figures yet for 2025. They want to boost domestic production, so they're lobbying for that. They they advocated for expanding production in California and New York. They're now pushing for a federal tax incentive, a stackable 25% federal rebate that could be combined with states. They're also working on the health plan. The health plan is a very big thing. Even because a lot of the people in the guild just they're older and they don't work anymore. So, and they rely on this health plan. This next part comes from Deadline, written by Katie Campione. Christopher Nolan says directors union unlikely to accept a 5-year deal with the AMPTP. DJ president talks AI, healthcare, tax incentives, and more ahead of 2026 bargaining. I linked to 2 articles, but they're 2 different interviews, so you'll get bits and pieces of information on both sides. Part of this was the AMPTP, which is the American. Hold on, let me find it. Alliance. It's wrong. Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. They wanted to do longer contracts. Shorter contracts may sound worse, but they're better for everybody all around. Not everybody. I'm talking about the members of the guilds, because things change over the course of a couple of years. So if you have longer contracts, then imagine not getting a raise after a certain amount of time and it's a raise that you deserve. As Deadline previously reported, the DGA, WGA, and SAG-AFTRA are all in need of cash infusions to their health and pension plans after being forced to dip into reserves over the last several years. While the DGA is currently the healthiest of the 3, leadership has already acknowledged the need for the employers to contribute more to these funds. All 3 unions are set to negotiate new contracts with the AMPTP in the oncoming weeks. And Deadline broke the news last month that the bargaining unit for the studios would offer a massive injection of cash into each of the guild's health and pension funds in exchange for longer contracts. No proposals have been made, but the negotiations start in May ahead of the June 30th contract expiration. Oh, he spoke to all 3 of the main outlets. Deadline, Variety, and The Hollywood Reporter. Oh. So again, they're working for health and pension plans, back-end profit participation, which is residuals, basically. They also, with the residuals, thanks in part to the reconfiguring the residual structure in the last ones, in the last contract negotiations, we found out that foreign residual payments were increased more or less. The 2023 contract, quote, increased the foreign payments by 76%, which led to a 21% overall increase in a streaming residual. That means people who have shows that are on streaming platforms like Netflix or Hulu that are also, or an HBO Max, that are also available over the seas, then they were also paid a little bit more. But remember, residuals, you can't live off residuals anymore. Nolan insinuates that that's an example of how the old models have to be reappraised. His words, not mine. They also want more ongoing AI protections. They're not looking to ban AI at this point, but it is something like they want to have their jobs protected. And you know what I like is that he refers to it as a tool. Again, it's a tool. You don't use a hammer just to build a house. Use a hammer and a saw and measuring tape. I've never built a house before. Then domestic production issues, and that's pretty much it. Everybody should be supporting the directors, the writers, the producers, the actors. When it comes to this, if you watch TV at all, if you listen to music at all, you should be supporting all of these unions. All right, listen, I'm done. If you like what you heard here, head to the website cpluscomedy.com, where you can see me talk to famous people. I just put out an interview at the episode before. This is a bonus episode with Sindhu V. We're talking about her new tour, and I try to get her on Taskmaster. It's great. If you want to watch a video version of this episode, as well as a video version of the interview, under the interviews, as well as video version of the other podcasts, Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show, and LinkedIn Logs, the Jobs Podcast, go to youtube.com/C+Comedy, where you can see that and more. Subscribe to those podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at C+Comedy. Me on those platforms at Chad Black White. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.